When I was learning to be a game master for Avatar Legends, the role-playing game, I gathered 10 core ideas to help you get started as a GM. If you decide to hang around until the end, I'll also share a few extra secrets and practical ideas about how I made my one-shot campaign more engaging for my players. This is Legendary Tactics. The ideas I'm offering today could apply to any role-playing game, but I'll use specific examples from Avatar: The Last Airbender, since this is the context out of which these ideas were born. I would strongly recommend that you watch the TV show before you lead a campaign. This will help you get the flavor of the world so that you can add rich detail. For example, if your group decides to play in the Aang era and the location is Ba Sing Se, then be sure to watch the episodes in Season 2 that will give you a foundation for your story. Let's begin with number 10, Overcoming Fear. Even though I've been teaching creative writing for over 2 decades and I'm very comfortable as a storyteller and a writer, I was very nervous to be a GM for the first time. What if I didn't know all the rules? What if I couldn't think on the spot? What if my ideas were no good? And so on. So here's my advice. If you wait until you know every single rule, every minuscule detail about being a game master, you'll never start playing. So don't be afraid to get the essence of the game, gather a group of friends who won't judge you too harshly, and just start playing. Your storyline should be like a sandbox. Don't try to force characters to do what you want them to, just so you can deliver the story that you prepared. Offer options and create your story as you go. This helps if you play over multiple sessions. Remember that the story is not only crafted by you, but also by the players. So give them room to interact with each other. Give them room to be involved in shaping the story and adding their own details. For example, if your characters are at the carnival, ask them what sights they've seen and probe them about who they've noticed at the carnival. You can get some really interesting details that way. You can then use these characters or locations as part of the narrative, which makes the whole story more immersive and collaborative, so don't feel that everything is on your shoulders. Number 9, are you a good GM? So how do you know if you're a good GM? To help me get over my nervousness as a new game master, one of my players gave me golden advice that really helped me overcome my fear of being terrible as a storyteller. The best measurement for this is fun. Are your players having fun? If they are, then you're doing splendidly. Nothing else matters. I played the same story with 2 different groups, and because of the personalities of the players involved, the stories went in 2 completely different directions. But the commonality was that both groups were just having fun. Number 8, customizing the story. Tailor your story to your group and allow for flexibility. If you know not only the characters in the game and in the Avatar world, but also the people and the players at the table who've created them, then you'll know what will appeal to them. If you're playing a game like Avatar, players who know the TV show will have an affinity for particular characters. So for these players, find ways to bring their favorite NPCs into the story that's non-player characters, and also be sure to give your players choices that have consequences. In my game, for instance, one player really liked the cabbage merchant. I mean, who doesn't? So I made sure that he had an important piece of information to share. But the player accidentally leaked this information to the villain, which resulted in the cabbage merchant being kidnapped and his pet turtle duck Daisy being taken. When players care about the characters involved, they'll also be much more deeply invested in your narrative. As well as having strong character, you should also develop the setting with lots of visual imagery and keep track of time to make the world more believable and to push the story forward. For instance, you may have a daily password that works one day, but not the next. This creates a sense of immediacy for your players, and I reminded my players very often what time of day it was based on how long it would take to travel from one location to another. Offer pathways and don't force players to go where you want. Let them find their path. Number 7, conflict. When I was crafting the narrative, much of my storyline came from my background as a creative writing teacher. Conflict is what drives the story. Be sure that characters have tangible goals. For example, find the missing and kidnapped woman, or locate the secret lair of the Dai Li. Then you need to throw obstacles in their way. A street gang, a lack of information, a time limit on an objective, a hard decision between 2 competing goals. And be sure to build tension using conflict, like Steven Spielberg, who's a filmmaker who allows us to know characters before they make meaningful choices. The longer you build tension, the bigger and more meaningful the payoff will be when it's resolved. Just don't be like George R.R. Martin, who kills off every single major character. Your conflict can't be so horrible that your players never have success, but just don't make it too easy for them. Miserable makes memories, so don't be afraid to have fun when they get bad rolls. These are great opportunities to add humor to your story. More on that later. Epic fails will often be what players remember most about your story. If this video is helpful to you, I'd sure appreciate if you could subscribe to Legendary Tactics to encourage us to make more content like this. And I'll make you a deal. If this video adds 50 subscribers to our channel, then I'll make more content like this. On to number 6, and this is about engaging players. You may find that some players, especially those who have previous experience with role-playing games, drive the story and make the decisions for all the other players. This is important as a game master, that you draw newer or more shy players into the story by offering events that connect personally with their characters. If you have, for instance, a waterbender in the group, perhaps it's time to invite Katara to enter the scene and to make a connection with that player. Or perhaps you notice a detail in a character's backstory that you can weave into your story. The playbooks in Avatar Legends provide rich context for each player. Study each character and flesh out plot points that allow them to rise up. You can also plant Easter eggs for players who know the show very well. For example, I included a firebender with a whip at the carnival. He was making a lion vulture fly through the flaming hoops. Do you recognize this? My group didn't immediately connect that this was the trainer who had tortured Appa when he had disappeared, but it provided an opportunity for players to explore another branch of the story. But this group completely ignored that story bait, and that's fine. It's their story, not just yours. Number 5, know your purpose. If your players are indecisive and having trouble making decisions, you may need to force some decisions to propel the narrative forward. Add a mysterious stranger who enters, or mention a scrap of paper on the cobblestones that contains compelling information. Have all the characters do an assess the situation roll and target the character with the worst roll with some sort of unlucky event, like being the target of a pickpocket, or reward the player with the best roll with some kind of juicy information. Think about what the emotional tone of your scene is, and use juxtaposition or contrast to add more interest. If your characters have been doing a lot of fighting, for example, perhaps a visit to a nice tea shop with some restorative opportunities and some Uncle Iroh quotes will be just what they need. Think about what the purpose of your scene is. Is this a tooling up scene? Is it a moral choice? Is this a chance to build or break relationships? Maybe this is part of the central puzzle. Or is it a side quest? A scene to develop a character maybe? Or a chance to explore the world and its wonders? If your scene has a strong purpose, then it will inevitably be engaging. Number 4, motivation. You have to give your NPC baddies some believable motivation. Their motivation doesn't necessarily have to be universally applicable. All that matters is that their drive or their desire is important to them. Perhaps it's proving their worthiness to another NPC, or maybe it's protecting a close friend from harm. This will help to drive your narratives and turn flat characters into believable people who have their own story. The most compelling villains are worthy adversaries, and are often the opposites of the hero. In Avatar, for instance, Fire Lord Ozai is everything that Aang is not. He destroys the natural world and values industrialization, while Aang seeks harmony with nature and unity between people. Ozai is about anger and power, whereas Aang is about peace and meditation. The villain in your tale is the catalyst for your storyline. The players will often react to the deeds of the villain. To make their characters complex, you should also offer them a point of view that justifies their villainous actions. Think about Thanos, for instance. He's a bad dude, but aren't his goals honorable to save humanity by bringing stability to the planet? So think about who your players are and create an antithetical villain. Incidentally, the feedback from my players that they gave me was that they really enjoyed when I did accents or voices for the characters. So if you have that particular skill, be sure you craft an awesome villain voice. If you've watched this far, dashing and debonair viewer, please consider liking the video to help our channel out. Also be sure to add your own ideas on strategies you used that really landed with your players. Okay, on to the top 3. Balance and growth. One element of this game that I often overlooked when we were in the thick of the story was larger character arcs. It can sometimes be a challenge to zoom out from the details of your story and to consider the bigger picture. Whether you play your game in several short sessions or in one longer sitting, don't forget to take time to pause the game to give your players space to think. Think about how their character's personality is changing based on the decisions they're making, or think about implications of their decisions. In this game system, it takes the shape of shifting balance, and each character has their own unique balance. It also takes the shape of growth, and that's usually at the end of a major accomplishment. This is especially important if you're doing more than a one-shot story. Remember, the more players connect with their character, and the more real their characters feel, the more engaged they'll be with your adventure. Number 2, failure. One element that I love about this particular game is that I never roll a die. The results come 100% from the players and their roles. So when something goes wrong, it's 100% their fault. You had nothing to do with it. So when they roll very, very badly, don't be afraid to embellish the failure. And don't let your characters wear plot armor. In the world of Avatar, this can take the form of a humorous error. And a character may, say, attempt to kick a door down, and if they fail, it may turn out that the door was actually fabric, so they overextend their leg and get wrapped up in the material, rolling into the room in a less than impressive entrance. Failure or consequences can also add dramatic weight to a story. A failure to imprison a rogue firebender may have future serious consequences, such as the home of an important character being burned to the ground, or a child being orphaned. Your players' failures really force your characters to be invested in both the decisions and the roles they make. Don't be afraid to drive emotion through their choices, especially the ones that don't work out. Remember, the dice are essentially the force that determines success and failure in the game, so in a way they could be considered fate. In fact, my favorite part of being a GM was that space of time between when a player made a roll and when I offered them the horrible consequence of their roll. The reaction on their faces was awesome. Number 1, and this one's really important. Though players will face tribulations and strife, they are the protagonists of your story, so it's really important that you offer them the opportunity to be heroic. Create incentives or rewards that are commensurate to the success they have. If they work hard to save a vulnerable character, this is much more reward-worthy than helping, say, the cabbage merchant pick up stray cabbages. Cabbage cookies would be a great option in that instance, whereas giving the player a crucial piece of information, or a family heirloom, or a new weapon that permanently enhances their abilities, those would be great choices in the former case. If in doubt though, just remember that all that matters is players are having fun. As promised at the start of the video, I have a few extra engagement tactics that I used in my game. These are fairly practical engagement tactics. The first is to make tangible notes or maps in advance that serve as clues as evidence that you can give to players. Players receive these when they trigger certain events or show up at particular locations or have success on a roll with a stranger. Think of it like a scavenger hunt. If players go to certain locations and roll well, they'll get some juicy rewards. For instance, I crafted a backstory for one character that was triggered when they first saw the character Hua. I made a series of love letters between the secret lovers that were uncovered by relying on their skills and training. And in one case, they didn't roll very well, so I ripped the note in half and only gave them half of the note. And so this drives them nuts in a good way if they know that they've got secret notes waiting for them and they just can't figure out how to get to them, or if they can't pull off a roll they need. Likewise, I also pulled some characters aside for secret discussions so that they could choose to keep this extra information to themselves, or share a version of it with the other group members. This gave the players agency in the game as well as a sense of empowerment, and in a way it made them trust each other just a little bit less. Finally, when the story reached its climax, as all their enemies converged on their fortified position, the number of characters that they had antagonized in this mission had grown to 47. This meant that I needed a chalkboard, and you could use an erasable whiteboard or even a drawing tablet to pull off the same, in order to show the tactics for each player and for each group of enemies, and to show how the battle was evolving. So simultaneous to the conflict, I had 50 cabins surrounding the area, and their kidnapping victim was hidden in one of them. So the final scene was not simply a big battle, it was also a hunt to save the innocents. And in each cabin that they opened up, there was some little secret or surprise or humor that added to the flavor of the story and reminded them that there were more people involved in this battle than just them. So this added some balance and pressure to the scene because some of the characters opted to fight while others were searching for the victim. Without this evolving map, I never would have been able to keep track of all the characters and their locations in mind. Having a visual representation transformed this from an overwhelming abstract scene to a very manageable concrete scene. I hope some of these ideas have been useful to you, and thanks for checking us out. Come again when you can stay a little longer, and be sure to let me know what other ideas you use to make your Avatar experience amazing.